Welcome back to another episode of the TNA podcast. You're listening to the TNA podcast.
Totally not appropriate.
We're your hosts, Taylor Sappington, a cosmic cartographer, medical astrologer, and herbalist decoding the intersection of soul, body, and belief.
And Adrienne Irizarry, a psychoalchemist trained in East Asian medicine, vibrational healing, and the sacred science of your nervous system.
Together, we blend ancient tools, clinical wisdom, and unapologetic truth-telling.
From main events to metaphysics, tarot to tonics, karma to cancel culture, nothing is off limits and everything is on the table.
This space is for the boldly curious,
the ones who crave uncomfortable conversations, crave deeper insight, and are done pretending that they don't feel what they feel.
So turn it up,
tune in,
and don't say we didn't warn you.
Welcome to TNA.
You're going to have to pardon the way that I sound via mic today. I was telling Adrienne before we hit record, on Sunday, my period dropped in my lap along with the plague. So whatever fresh hell is going around on college campuses, in schools, it's been a long time since I have felt this unwell.
And it's going around. I have a child home with this plague right now as well. He's home from school. I homeschool most of my children, but my oldest decided that he wanted to do his senior year at the high school, which I respect. So he's at the school, but he brings everything home. So with this small person at home, I'm like, no, stay away from your brother. Wash your hands. Like,
well, I think I think it's important to talk about this too. So my period came on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And obviously the symptoms started to settle in on Sunday. And you were talking about how you just got your period this morning.
Yep.
What happens in layman's terms, like the simplest way we can put it? What happens when you get your period? Why does your immune system tank?
I love this question, and I'm so glad you asked it, because a lot of people actually don't put that connection together. They're like, oh, I have my period at the same time I'm sick. This just seems like the universe is out to get me. Like, no, it's because your defense shield, in Chinese medicine, they call it the Wei Qi, drops because all of your energy is descending for the period to happen. So I kind of describe it, and, you know, for those of you who are like millennials, zennials, this will probably land with you. The vision that I get in my brain when I give this analogy to people is like the Star Trek, The Next Generation, right? Okay, Jean-Luc Picard is on the starboard, whatever, in the ship, and they're getting hit. Mm-hmm. Right. And they're fine. They're like, oh, you know, we're taking fire, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as it gets through that shield, then you see everybody being tossed around in the ship. And they're like, oh, Scotty, can you repair the shields? I think I'm now putting the different generations of Star Trek in the same explanation, but you get what I'm saying. Like, now they're calling maintenance and going, oh shit, the bombs are getting through, and we're now taking damage. Can you shore up the shield? Okay. So that is a really good visual of what happens. You have this force field, if you will, that lives around your body, and it helps to keep things out. And when something gets through, then your immune system does its like upgrade, right? It deals with the bacteria or the virus.
That is what is getting me through this. I know that I am getting a fucking upgrade.
Yeah, even though the upgrade feels like trash most of the time.
Awful.
And especially when it happens at the same time as your period too, because like, you're already in a more weakened state.
Yep.
And now you're like trying to deal with fighting this thing off at the same time. Postpartum, you're also more susceptible to getting sick as well. So you tend to be able to care for the family and do all those things until like right around your period. Sometimes they'll even bring the period on early because you're like starting to come into that energy where your defense shield is starting to drop. And there are herbal formulas that help to like reinforce that defense shield, but like the shield does drop because the energy is all down and out. So it is completely normal, unfortunate, but normal to see I get sick when I get my period. I don't get sick any other time in the month, but then I get sick when I have my period.
And that is essentially what happened. I was like, of course, this is going to happen. I said to Adrian, I spent 2 weeks taking care of and tending to a household that had some variation of this. And I was feeling quite good about myself. I was like, we good. We're going to get through this and we're not going to have any symptoms. And then Sunday came and I was like, we are not good. Ship down, man down, man down. It's been a minute since I have felt this under the weather. And I just keep telling myself there's a culmination of things going on in the world right now, which Adrian and I are going to talk about. But it was time. Dr. Zach Bush does a really beautiful job of talking about this. But when you look at the flu every year, large majority of people we lose to the flu are either incredibly young, but more so incredibly old. Like our geriatric patient population are the ones that succumb to the flu when we're talking about like really intense flu seasons, which, you catch a flu. Flus are intense. And I think that in part, that's a bit of natural selection, if you will. Like the defenses were down. The body didn't have the reserves to combat what was going on. We have to remain, not to sound crass, but we have to remain relevant in our constantly changing environment. And if you have an immune system that can't adapt to the things that are changing lightning speed, 9 times out of 10, you don't know you've gotten something because your immune system just handles it. But when you succumb to or come down with something, if you will, it's just a reminder that your body needed the upgrade. And I'm not too proud. There was a point in my life where I would take nothing over the counter. Let me put it that way. Where I was like, it's a symptom. I need to ride it out. That's how the immune response is going to develop. Yeah, we're past that chapter in life because I think that comes with age and wisdom where you're like, my immune system in my body is so resilient. I can take 10 ml of the kid's Motrin so that my goosebumps don't ache, in order to get good sleep. So I just think it's really important when we're dealing with cold and flu season, which I think that's a crock of shit too, but I digress. We remind ourselves that it's an imperative part of us remaining relevant in our environment.
It is. And this has been a particularly feisty cold and flu season.
Has it?
Oh,
I mean, I guess I've seen
here.
it. Okay.
Here in New England.
Florida's gone like this. I don't know if that's helped a lot either. We've gone from like 20 and humid. It's all wet, cold, and damp heat, right? So we've gone like this. So I imagine that's contributing as well too.
Absolutely. And up here in New England, it's the fact that everything is shut in and to keep the heat in, and you don't get a lot of free flow of air, and you go literally from house to car to next building, and people sometimes don't wash their hands. It's so gross. So yeah, it's a whole thing. Like my family thinks I'm nuts because I open the windows and I essentially
One
do
of the best things you can do.
My husband's always like, oh, heating's so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, I pay the bill. I get it. Like, yes, it is expensive. And yet I stood on my front steps for a few minutes this morning, just like taking really big gulps of air into my body because I mean, it's not -7 and my nose is not freezing together trying to do that this morning. Right. It's actually 30 degrees. Woohoo!
Balmy.
It is balmy today. I was actually thinking about going for a walk with the baby today because it's not under zero.
In the negative. Yeah.
But, all of those particles, like warm things, speed up and they lift. They don't settle on surfaces and people and all that kind of stuff. So it has been probably the most brutally cold winter we have had up here, and snow. My husband woke up this morning and was like, ew, I thought we were supposed to get 3 to 4 inches and I've got 6+. I've got to clean out of the yard.
Oh my God.
So we've had so much snow and we've had so much cold this winter. It's like, this is like a New England winter, and you have to do the air exchange. Otherwise, people get sick.
Yeah. I also don't think I did myself any favors. I went to acupuncture on Monday. Acupuncture is wonderful for immune modulation,
Yep.
and to support where you are in your cycle. But I allowed her to cut me.
Oh, yep.
I allowed her to cut me, knowing what it was going to do. I'm like, well, this is going to pull it up in a really violent way, but it's going to push it out quicker.
Yep.
So I let her cut me, knowing that I was probably going to feel the burn of that. Let me tell you.
You're like, I'm feeling the burn, guys.
I felt the burn of that. But I woke up feeling better today than I did yesterday. And I imagine this is just going to go quicker. So sometimes we do things that we know are going to create temporary discomfort for long-term adaptation. And I think that's also really important to keep in mind too. Also, just side note, pin this somewhere, come back to it and listen to it next year. You cannot start taking your supplements the moment your symptoms onset. Forget the word supplements, because we're going to talk about those today too. Like, you can't nourish your body the moment symptoms onset. Like, that's just not how this works. You're not boosting your immune system.
Yeah, I hear that terminology a lot, but it goes with that mindset that we take a pill for a symptom.
Yeah.
Right. And so people try to use herbs, extra vitamin C, nutraceuticals, all these types of things to like, oh, I now have this acute thing. I can take a pill and it will solve the problem. And the thing is, the way that your immune system works, it has to be well resourced. And resourced can look like, I am vitamin D deficient. Right? Which a lot of friggin' people are, because even if you're in southern places, I had this conversation with a practitioner in Texas the other day, and she goes, no, you'd be surprised how many people down here are vitamin D deficient. And it's because it's too damn hot in the summer for their comfort level. They go from building to air conditioned building, and they don't spend time outside. And I had kind of assumed, and obviously incorrectly, as somebody who lives in New England, and you get some time outside, but part of the time that you spend outside, like in the winter, most of you is covered from head to toe. So you're not getting the vitamin D, even if you're outside, right?
Right.
Not to mention the angle of the sun and the earth and all these things, right? So
yeah, the intensity of the UVs matters.
I had just kind of assumed, and obviously incorrectly, that up here is like anybody that I treat in New England, vitamin D has to be part of the conversation because we tend to have this issue up here. So it could be something like vitamin D, but it could be energy. Like if you're getting shit sleep, you don't have enough energy in your body. And so resources are important, and often,
or if
how
you're
much
in
you
the
have going into
and
it.
in the sauna, if you're in the gym and in the sauna and taking multiple classes and working with multiple clients, like a catabolic mind creates a catabolic body. Period. And I love how people are like, well, I'll just supplement, I'm low in magnesium. And I'm like, yeah, but until you get that mind under control, it's going to be an unequal exchange, in and out, in and out, in and out. And that's with anything that you take, unequal exchange, because you're constantly withdrawing from the bank account that's already set at negative.
Yes. And I have this conversation a lot with people, illness, and I see it a lot when we're talking about cycle related challenges, right? Like, in order for your reproductive system to function optimally, you have to be in more of an abundant state. Because the body sees the reproductive system as a second class citizen.
It's not necessary for survival.
Correct. And survive will always win over procreate in the primal brain, right? So like,
and where do most of us live these days?
Fight or flight.
If not complete fawn freeze.
Yes, true.
So absolutely.
Yeah. And, those resources, like we have epidemic levels of period problems. I just released some things on social media talking about the fact that like 37% of the 85% of women reported that have period related disharmony or dysfunction symptoms, right? 37% of those women can't even function several days out of the month. Like, how do we get there? By being under-resourced. It's the same thing with getting sick. How we get sick harder if we don't have enough tools. Like my family, we all got COVID And for the majority of it, we skated through 48 hours of symptoms, felt a little tired for a couple days afterwards, and then moved on. Like, it wasn't a big deal. But I also make sure that my family is well resourced, you know? So, and really the big one, the 17-and-a-half-year-old tends to get sick the hardest. Why? Because mom is dumb now and she doesn't know anything.
I have an 11-year-old like that where I'm just like, it's fine. Figure it out. I'll be here.
He's like, crash and burn. And he goes, I'm hardly ever homesick from school. I was like, yeah, because you decided this last year that I'm the biggest idiot on the planet. And because you won't do anything that I suggest, welcome, friend. This is the outcome of your decision.
This is where most people live their life, my dude.
Right?
And that has certainly been me in previous chapters of life. I will say I was the one who was always sick. That was an under-resourced in a different way, though. And then I've had chapters of life where I never got sick and I thought it was the best thing ever. And, you know, you come to learn your immune system not responding to anything is highly problematic. So, yeah, it's been interesting. It's been humbling, to say the least, because I'm like, I am resourced.
Yes.
I am well-resourced. So to feel this significantly, I'm like, I can only imagine what people who aren't resourced feel like navigating this. This is fucking awful.
Yeah. Well, but that's why there's so many hospitalizations. There's so many people that are like, I can't even function. And it's because they're going into it far less resourced. Taylor's one of the most well-resourced humans I have ever met. She and I both have celiac disease, by the way. Okay.
Literally.
So just want to put that out there when we're talking about this. We're not dealing with perfect functioning immune systems. Like, both of us have celiac disease where we have to work really hard to make sure that we have all the nutrients that we need. We have to work really hard that we have all of the resources that we need. Our bodies could really be full-time projects in terms of...
And they have, in previous chapters,
But that's it. Like, I have also felt that way where my body was a full-time project. And it's hard when your body isn't absorbing things the way that it's supposed to. And there's a lot of people... And I'm saying this because, like, there are people with celiac disease. There's people that have absorbency issues with their gut and all of this stuff. Like, there's a lot of us that struggle with being able to appropriately resource ourselves. And then the modern world on top of it is just like absolute chaos.
Okay, well, the modern world is dying. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to illuminate too. Like, guys, say goodbye.
Yep.
And, you know, Adrienne and I were talking about this before we hit record. I have seen a lot of people talk about the new world. And I guess in religious context, rapture.
Yep.
Okay. Like, whatever we want to call it. I want to be the big sister that tells you the hard news in the kindest way possible. Where things are going, it's probably not going to be obvious to most of us because it's happening on a frequency level.
Mm-hmm.
This is where those of us that have been unfortunately brainwashed, I don't know how else to put it, by certain systems put in place, seeing things like quantum, energy, grids. What am I missing, Adrienne?
I don't know. I was going to say, those are the most common pieces that I hear discussed. And I mean, quantum can also be capital Q or small q. So, like, maybe that's the only thing that I would add to that.
Yeah. So I'm talking about, like, we are all, yes, we have the mental, emotional, and physical body, and that's where most of us live.
Yep.
But we also have the supramental and the spiritual, or the bliss body, that exists too. It's the 5 bodies. In quantum medicine, you are 5 bodies, and these 2 are subtle.
Yes.
Right. And mental, emotional, and physical are things that we tend to address here. But a lot of our tools, actually, the majority of our tools, don't touch the other 2, the supramental and then the bliss body. Right. So, like, when we're talking about where things are going, I'm talking about the 5 subtle bodies. And most of us disregard that these 2 even exist. If you're living in the matrix that is these 3, or the hologram that is these 3, you know, mental, emotional, physical, folks, you're probably going to miss the train.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Saturn moving into Aries on Friday. We will have a conjunction with Saturn and Neptune on the 26th, along with a Uranus conjunction, that we haven't seen in, I think, 2,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
We have eclipse season starting on the 17th, and then obviously the conjunctions I was mentioning for the 26th. Life is not going to look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing. And if you think it's intense right now with the release of the Epstein files, it's so wild to me. There's like Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk. I'm like, what's the timeline here? Like, we have the assassination of Charlie Kirk and then the takeover of Turning Point, TPUSA, which that's a whole clusterfuck in and of itself. You want to talk like, that's gotten dark really quick. Okay. And then is there something that happened in between? Then we've got the Israel component to things, right? And the Iran component to things, and like the clusterfuck that's happening internationally.
And Venezuela.
And Venezuela. Okay. And then what just recently happened? Oh yeah, the drop of the Epstein files, where literally every person that has ever held a position of power was named. And then we watch the Super Bowl and we praise Bad Bunny, but we haven't yet addressed what's going on in the Epstein files. Do we all see how diseased this is?
Well, and there's so much polarization around the conversation of the Super Bowl too. It's bonkers to me. Like, Bad Bunny's Super Bowl appearance. My husband, who is Puerto Rican, by the way, guys, has been watching for the Nielsen numbers. Because he wanted to know. Because there was so much, like, if you look at the press, it looks like there is a really big contingent that is saying one thing and a really big contingent that's saying another. And it's really hard to not feel discouraged that the way that you feel is out of alignment. And the truth of the matter, and it really came out when the Nielsen numbers came out yesterday, which my husband was really excited about. He was disappointed that Kendrick Lamar's performance last year beat him out by like 5 million views. He was super bummed about that. So it was the second highest viewed halftime show in history.
I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't watch it. Football to me is kind of like...
See, and I am the same way. I totally tune in for the concert in the middle. And I appease my family. There's a couple of football fans in my house. I could take it or leave it. It's not fast enough tempo for me. I'm more of a hockey person. People hit each other and it's faster.
With the Olympics, we were watching that last night. The Canadian women's team and the U.S. women's team, who was spanking the Canadian team. I have a Canadian husband. I'm allowed to say.
So 128 million views, according to the official Nielsen numbers. And there were 6 million that tuned in for the Turning Point USA. Now,
those are so different from what I heard.
So drastically different than what
I heard 53 million. For the TPUSA.
But still think about that. How many times more people were actually watching Bad Bunny's experience? And he represented cross-cultural, multicultural, multilingual, which is our lived experience here in the United States. This isn't a conversation about official language, which until our current presidency, we have had no official language in the United States. I learned that one the hard way when I was writing my master's thesis. I, like so many people, had made the fucked up assumption that English was the declared language in the United States because of how it's presented. And that is not true. It wasn't until we had the Angry Cheeto at the helm that we currently have that English was declared the national language. So we, up until 250 years, guys, we have not had an official language here in the United States. We have had, Canada has a mosaic concept of multiculturalism, which I think is very cool. In the United States, we've always had this melting pot idea, which is we're going to assimilate, but we're going to make you what we want you to be, which is a very different mentality than being able to hold on to your
cultural ties.
And so anyway, I think it makes this whole Super Bowl conversation very interesting because this is the first time you've ever had any performer perform in a different language. And yet there was English representation and there was Spanish representation and there was multicultural representation. He had visuals that called out some of the places where Puerto Rico not only has shined, but also has had challenges. It was really brilliantly done if you look at it from an artistic perspective. And it was very inclusive from a cross-cultural, multilingual perspective. And the people who have said nasty things about it, it really goes to show how divisive the rhetoric is right now. And that rhetoric is so loud. The propaganda is so loud that a lot of people think that is the dominant school of thought, and it's not.
I really do think that media in general is cancer in this society. Mm-hmm. Like, I love the people that are like, it's been such a great tool. And I'm like, I'm going to turn the volume down on you. Because while I agree, the problems that it has represented and perpetuated is so much greater. I think we're seeing that. I said to Adrian, I'm like purging quote unquote followers, which, ew, can we find another name for that? Like, you know, there are people that are choosing to leave for whatever reason my page on Instagram. And I'm like, well, is it because I'm talking about astrology now and I'm not talking about functional medicine anymore and integrative health? Or is it because people are just so done with this app?
And I think it's a little of both.
Probably.
Honestly, simply because there is a certain kind of thought process that goes into integrative and functional medicine.
I mean, let's rip that one apart in a minute.
So I'm setting the tone for that. So, you know, there's a certain kind of thought process that goes into working with that kind of practitioner. And what we're talking about, what we're offering, both you and I as practitioners, is so much more expansive than that. Mm-hmm. And that's the box that I found myself in last year too, is no, I'm not just a Chinese medicine practitioner. Like, I work in a much bigger spectrum than that. And I really feel like I do more as a frequency medicine practitioner at this stage in my practice with the way that I work with people. And so a lot of my shedding of my skin, so to speak, during the year of the snake was letting go of what I used to be and stepping into what I actually feel like I am now. And now that we're coming into the year of the fire horse, like, I am being invited to like really be more vocal about what that is and how that serves and all of those kinds of things. And it's a very different, and people have to be ready for it, right? You have to feel, maybe you're not able to articulate exactly what it is that you feel, but you feel like you need something more. You need something different. The model that has existed in front of you isn't serving you the way that you need. And maybe you don't know what it is that you need, but you have that pull because you know that there's something that you need. And it's hard to form words around, which is why I'm sounding kind of vague. But I feel like that is the sentiment that I hear from the women who are finding me right now. It's happening through more of that community referral kind of thing, like practitioner to practitioner, practitioner to client, you know, like that type of thing, which I feel really good about because that feels very much more like the community herbalist feel. You're taking care of the community around you, but there's a completely different energy to it, and being able to support people and help them move through their journey, because so much of what we're seeing is physical symptoms that are a result of the fact that the frequency is changing.
Absolutely. And I am learning how to make something called direct spectrum frequency medicine. This is something, I want to give an example. So every single organ system in your body regenerates over a certain period of time. Kidneys are 8 weeks. You know, I think liver's around the same time. Gastrointestinal tract is much quicker. I think it's 3. But if your body only knows how to replicate Swiss cheese, you're going to get a whole new organ system because it's copy paste that looks like Swiss cheese. And what I mean by Swiss cheese is you've got gaps, you've got inadequacies, you've got an incomplete morphogenetic field. So let's just talk about this in the context of hormones, okay? The kidneys are a huge piece of hormonal modulation. Huge, okay? And there are so many things in life that can fragment your kidneys. Birth can fragment your kidneys. Miscarriage can fragment your kidneys. Sexual trauma can fragment your kidneys. In fact, if we go all the way back to your labor and delivery, meaning you coming into this world, if mom is not providing you a morphogenetic field from a cup that overfloweth, there's a good chance that you're going to be born with an incomplete set of information. And therefore, your kidneys are always going to operate at best subpar. So you're going to spend your entire life when it becomes a problem. Most of us don't recognize this until our teens, when our period sets in, and then in our 20s when they're excruciating, and then in our 30s when we want to get pregnant and we can't, right? So like there's going to come a time where you're going to chase every solution that is offered to you from every modality, and some are going to inch you closer to where you think you need to go, right? Doesn't mean that they're all lost. It's nice to have tools for symptomatic relief, but there's going to come a time where you sit down and you go, I've literally tried everything, and I am still dealing with symptom XYZ PDQ because your kidneys are operating off of an incomplete morphogenetic field, and no supplement is going to address that. That is the type of frequency Adrienne and I are talking about.
Yep.
No supplement is going to address that. No pharmaceutical is going to address that. PRP, plasmapheresis, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, blah, 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 blah. Nothing's going to address that. But direct spectrum frequency medicine will. And that only goes into an ecosystem that's been cared for. You can't put that into anybody's body. So this isn't like oh God, she's talking about something new that I haven't tried. Yeah, if you're under-resourced, that's not your first go-to.
Yep.
So like this is where things are going. This is where medicine, I think, is eventually going to land. But think about the dogma that people are going to have to put down in order to get there.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, and we're seeing some of the shift beginning now. I mean, we're seeing it. You and I started talking about the Schumann resonance before we began recording, and how literally this beautiful rock that we live on
has a heartbeat.
I
think it's really important. Let's talk about the Schumann resonance, and then let's also talk about energy harvesting, because I think that's a very real thing too. Erlushing, okay? The Schumann resonance is the frequency that pulses in between the space of the Earth's surface, right, and the ionosphere. So it's the upper layer of the atmosphere. We're going to get a little nerdy with this. It was first mathematically predicted, the Schumann resonance was, by physicist Winfried, I love that name, Winfried Otto Schumann, okay, in 1952. So not that long ago. If you think about it. And it typically measures at 7.83 hertz. I wish everybody understood hertz. If you understand hertz, pause and go look at all the music you listen to. Literally.
Yes.
Okay. This number is not just scientific curiosity, it's sacred biology. 7.83 hertz, okay? The human brain operates on a similar frequency of that 7.83 hertz, especially when you're in a meditative, creative, intuitive state like alpha, right? So alpha is 8 to 12 hertz. Theta is 4 to 5 hertz. So you've got alpha and you've got theta. And these frequencies are associated with calm awareness. They're associated with emotional healing. They're associated with deeper inner knowing. Now, I'm going to sound like an asshole when I say this, but I will be the class asshole. All fucks have gone out the window with how I feel. How many people protesting in the streets are operating in an alpha or a theta state? How many people screaming online about who you should be standing up for and what side you should be taking and how your political affiliation, right or left, is wrong and erroneous and like you're contributing to this and that? How many of those people are operating in an alpha or a theta state? How much of what we witness on a day-to-day basis is rooted in?
I want to be like, go lay in the fucking grass.
Literally.
And then talk to me.
For like
Hug
a
a
few
tree.
hours. For a few. Literally, that's medicine though. Like they make fun of people that hug trees. Like that's really medicine.
It is. There is an electromagnetic exchange. That happens. So yes, it really is beautiful medicine.
Like the way that most people are operating today, it's why I don't like take at this point comments that are rude. Personally, I'm like, oh God. Okay, moving on. So like, it's really important to pay attention to what we're talking about here, because when Earth pulses in her natural rhythm, your body syncs to that. It's why being on computers all day is problematic. It's why always having access to your phone is problematic. It's why having your Wi-Fi on all the time is problematic. It's why driving around in a Tesla is problematic. Sorry, not sorry. Don't sit in that
it's
thing.
like being in a microwave.
Yeah, don't sit in that thing where you're charging it. You're cooking yourself. Okay, but oftentimes when people plug into this frequency, you're going to feel grounded, you're going to feel regulated, you're going to feel clear. And when this spikes, when the Schumann resonance spikes, and we're talking about like 100 hertz, that's what we're dealing with lately. 7.83 to 100, your system scrambles. Right? So we've had consistent, persistent Schumann resonance spikes and drops for like 6-7 days now. Okay. And when you understand how to look at the graph and you watch what the graph is doing, it's so unnatural, Adrienne. It's so unnatural. And what we talked about before we hit record was nothing in nature grows and amplifies in a linear capacity at the accelerated rate that we're watching the Schumann resonance grid perpetually in a linear fashion, nonetheless, amplify at such an accelerated rate. That indicates that there is manipulation happening. And I loved Adrienne.
So sad.
I love it though. Adrienne was like, well, how does that happen? And I'm like, well, cloud seeding, there's manipulation of the weather. So I'm sure it's not hard for these people to manipulate the frequency. 5G towers is a manipulation of the frequency.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. I mean, it manipulates our cells, so I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of that. But I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, this is where Adrienne's going to show how naive she is and how much she like just believes in the good of people and humanity, like collectively. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of shit right now, and I get frustrated and really discouraged by that. But in my heart of hearts, I'm like, well, why would you go and fuck with the planet we're living on? You know what I mean?
Because they don't care. You're a commodity. Like, people are just commodities that can be replaced.
Yeah, see, and I guess because I don't operate like when I asked that question to you, that's not where my brain went first, but it's true. Like,
well, and are you
a great example?
Are you easier to control when you're calm and regulated and clear, or are you easier to control when you're scrambled?
Right. You're scrambled for 500, Alex.
Right. And most people are operating scrambled. So what happens when these grid spikes, if you will, we now have access. NASA did research on this. I can link it in the show notes. So we now have access to satellite data and electromagnetic field monitors, right? And scientists, including NASA, tracking the Schumann resonance, are tracking the spiking far beyond its natural state. So its natural state is 7.83 hertz. We're seeing the Schumann resonance hit 30 hertz, 50 hertz, as of late, 100 hertz, right? During solar storms and geomagnetic activity. How many solar storms have we had?
We've had a bunch. They've been more intense.
So intense.
They have been historically.
Right. And these spikes are sudden. They're often intense, right? And they're also happening more frequently. So people are now starting to pay attention to this. And the most common things that are reported during these spikes: sudden fatigue after a full night of sleep, panic, anxiety, and overwhelm with no logical trigger. Okay. Heart palpitations, tight chest, shallow breathing, mood swings, or unexplained emotional waves. Very common. Brain fog, trouble focusing, strange mental distortions. Okay. And then obviously intensified dreams, visions, intuitive downloads. That can be a part of it as well too, as well as a sense that time is moving or that something invisible is pressing in, right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been feeling that a lot lately. Like time feels like a construct, and yet
Which
I'm late
it
for
is.
something.
What a wild place to be, right?
I freaking hate that feeling because it makes me anxious as hell.
And these aren't random symptoms. These are electromagnetic responses. So you're a bioelectrical being. When we are talking about direct spectrum frequency medicine, we are looking at the stage of disease that happens long before we get physical. It happens at a biophotonic level. You are made up of light, literally. That's why going out in the morning is not just a trend and getting morning sunlight. Like, it's literally how you turn your mitochondria on in the morning. I love when people are like, well, I have to go to work before the sun's out. Then we need to change the way we do things in society. We don't change the way the sun rises and sets. We change the way that we respond to the sunrise and the sunset. And with enough people talking about how they're filing extensions and not paying taxes, if we can get on the same page with that, people, we can get on the same page with changes in the workplace. Come on. Like, equally as monumental in how it's going to impact the government and people who benefit from us being dysregulated. So when the Earth's frequency spikes, your nervous system tries to recalibrate, and it doesn't always do so quietly.
It never does so quietly because the body communicates with us, right? And so symptoms is the language with which the body communicates. So of course you're going to get symptomatic when things are off because the body's going, oh, hey, I'm not in my normal, happy, harmonious state. Please send help.
Yeah. And according to the NASA reports that I've read, when we have changes in the Earth's magnetic and atmospheric conditions, especially during spikes, like that's what I'm talking about here, we can see blood pressure variances. We can see heart rate variability. So all of you that obsessively track your Oura ring and you're like, I don't know why my HRV is out of like whack. That's coherence. That's lack of coherence. Okay. We don't need to make it fancier than it is. Melatonin levels are impacted and brainwave function starts to be impacted as well too. So like these are significant changes in your body.
I had the most wackadoo fucking dream last night that woke me out of a sound sleep, like terror. And hand to God, there was something in my room. And I was like,
I think it's hilarious that people think we're alone. I think it is hilarious that people think that when you're sitting in a room by yourself, you're it.
Oh, no.
Really? And I'm the weird one?
Well, but think about it. Like, how many people get that feeling that they're not alone in a room and they turn and they look and they're like, oh, but I'm alone in a room. Well, no,
but you're not.
Just because what you can see with your eyeballs, your field in your body picks up on a whole bunch of things that you can't rationalize with your brain. That's where that Spidey senses thing comes in, right? Like you can feel that something is a bad idea before your brain can rationalize why it's a bad idea.
And I also think it's hilarious that people think that Star Wars and what's the other one?
Star Trek.
Yeah, that one.
Like my Star Trek example.
Yeah. Star Wars. We know that more in my house, but I'm like, people don't think this is a documentary. Like, people think this is like sci-fi. I think anybody who looks at that and goes, this isn't real, I think you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
You call me what you want. But like, if you think that we're the only life form that exists in this entire galaxy and we're not impacted by other galaxies.
Yeah, it's way too big a place.
There is no way that someone's beautiful brain, with all the capacity that a brain has, can imagine all of that without it being real. I'm sorry. It's like the conversation on aliens. Like, yes, of course they're real. And I don't think they want a whole lot to do with us right now.
No.
We are.
They're probably eating popcorn and just watching.
Like, what the fuck is with these humans? They're fucking destroying it. I mean, and that leads me to like the conversation on parasites that I had with somebody the other day, where we live in this world where we walk into a practice with a functional integrative practitioner, even a naturopathic practitioner, although I think they're a bit more skilled than the two aforementioned naturopaths are. And, you know, let's just take parasites, for example. We're going to kill them. We're going to excrete them. And I'm like, do you not understand that we are the largest parasite living? Do we understand the irony of this conversation? And the way that we treat these microorganisms is merely reflected in the way we treat our macro ecosystem. We wouldn't be here without parasites. They are part of the evolution of humanity. Many of our behaviors are derived from them. And what are we? We live on Earth. We utilize her resources and don't replenish them. We eat ourselves fat, dumb, and stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, okay, so we want to go kill and excrete parasites, but we don't want to look at our own participation in the parasitic behavior on this Earth as it exists. I would argue that we're worse because there's a sentient component. Most of these other parasites, there's no sentient component. They're just doing what they know what they need to do in order to preserve their longevity. We know what we're doing.
Well, But do we? I mean, yes, there is a sentient component, but I think that is an interesting thought experiment, though, because I think some people just only know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And then once you illuminate what they don't know, they go, oh, maybe I should take a look at how I'm moving through the world and doing things, how I've been eating things that I always accepted as quote unquote normal that have only been normalized.
Yep.
Right? Like, I think that there are more and more people who are questioning these days, which I am excited to see. And I really invite, because that is how change will happen. You know, I think to your point that there are plenty of people who just don't care and they do what they want to do because that's what they want to do. And that is a big part of the root of the problem. But I do think that there are an awful lot of people who were raised in a certain kind of household, a certain kind of cultural experience, not exposed to other things. My husband and I had this conversation around the Bad Bunny and Super Bowl situation, right? If you've been in the same town your entire life with the same kinds of people, the same mentality, the same influences, and you've never been exposed to anything else, you don't even think to question because this is what you've always known.
Right. But you also know there's a big world out there. You have the ability to move. You're not a damn tree. Move.
Right. But not everybody feels like they have the opportunity to do that. It could be financial. It could be familial resources. There's a whole bunch of reasons, right? Why people justify being able to move or not being able to move or whatever. And
I think that's the key word, justify.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because everything is a choice at the end of the day. However, if you've never been, quote unquote, given a reason to change the culture that you're saturated in, the town you grew up in, the location you're in, whatever, you don't realize what it is that you're missing out on. And so, again, it goes back to that you don't know what you don't know.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Like, we're talking about grids. There are countless grids to live on. Arguably, I don't live on the same one as those people. It's apparent, right? And, you know, do I think that there are systems in place that can be problematic? I do. Do I think that there are like laws in place that can be problematic? Yeah, I absolutely think there are, right? Like, but I also think that the structure has been set up intentionally to perpetuate exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, I agree with you.
And I think that's what needs to be recognized. Like, we have to deconstruct the structures that are in place in order to make change feasible for everybody. And there are people that don't want to see the structures deconstructed too. Like, that's another reality that I'm like, really? You're good with it? Really?
Well, and this is where the clash is happening in the collective rhetoric right now, is those who are trying to cling desperately to what they consider quote unquote normal, and then where the rest of the world is actually going.
I don't think most people know where we're going, though. Like, I don't think they fully realize where we're going.
And the unknown is scary.
Yeah.
And so they cling harder to the constant that they know.
Right. Constant familiar hell is easier than an unfamiliar heaven.
Well, and coming back to functional and integrative medicine,
we're going to have to do a whole podcast on that.
But really, it dovetails with this, right? Like, it's trying to go in a newer direction beyond where allopathic reach is right now. However, it's becoming more of the same. You know what I mean? Because people are in this space. And I hear this a lot when I see like moms groups and things like that, where they're like, I'm looking for a holistic OBGYN. And I'm like, that is really a unicorn. And that is no offense to an OBGYN. It's just their training came through a certain school of thought. They were trained to use certain tools in their toolkit. And what we're talking about is far expansive beyond and outside of. And that's where there's a lot of skepticism. Like, I talked with one of my IVF clients yesterday, and she goes, I'm feeling really torn. The IVF doctor told me not to use any of the herbs that you're giving me.
But
and
why?
I said, it's because they don't know how it works. And so they don't want to use anything that they're not familiar with, which I understand. And this isn't the first time I've encountered this.
But I think it's really problematic. Okay. Oh my God.
This could be a whole episode. It's a big topic.
So maybe we will just pin it as a whole episode. But I will say what I said at the beginning before we hit record. Functional medicine, just like the majority of most Western modalities, are a ceiling, not a floor.
Mm-hmm.
Your upward mobility or your capacity to move upwards within the utilization of the tools that are provided is limited. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it is limited to the person's capacity to interpret the results and to appropriately apply whatever needs to be applied in the context of what those results are revealing. And this is why I closed my whole practice down, because I couldn't put my head on a pillow at night and go, yes, I am going to continue to charge these astronomical prices that labs require. Mm-hmm. I always gave labs at cost. I made $0 on labs, zero. Okay. I am going to charge somebody these astronomical numbers. I'm going to have them pee in a cup, cut their hair, spit in a tube, and I'm going to get some good information. Really, like, it's going to be good information, but it's going to be temporary in terms of perspective. And it's still looking at the trunk instead of the root system. I'm looking at the trunk of the tree instead of the root systems. Functional medicine looks at the trunk. Western medicine looks at the branches, right? Frequency medicine looks at the entire mycelium network.
Yep.
So why do we ask what your family history is? Well, it goes so far beyond you potentially having a disease. I need to know what has been instilled in you from a genetic perspective, but also what mind virus has been placed in your head as well, too. Like, it goes so far beyond what most people realize. So when you're just looking at the trunk, sure, you're going to get a wider perspective that's a bit more expansive, but you're still missing the entire communal network of everything that contributes to the health of that trunk, and thus the branches, the leaves, etc. When you come at it from that perspective. And I couldn't put my head on a pillow at night and go, I'm going to continue to charge these astronomical prices and talk in circles with somebody who absolutely needs to change some things in their life, but they're doing the best that they can with what they have. And I'm going to tell them they need to go to therapy, because most people at that point need to go to therapy. Their body is a project that they need to fix. We got to get out of that mindset too, right? And there are things that they haven't addressed from their past or within their family system. Therapy is great for applying meaning, but once we apply meaning, we need to move on, right? Therapy is great for meaning making, but once we have that, we got to move on. So like, I couldn't do it. Functional medicine was a ceiling, not a floor. And when you look at the entire root system, sure, there are things that you can always maximize, but the diseased roots become really obvious. You're like, oh, this is a DNA thing, right? You're never going to fix this with what you're doing because it's DNA. Or, oh, this is an ancestral thing. And this is how I can tell. Right? And all the therapy in the world isn't going to fix it. Or, oh, this is a morphogenetic thing. Most people don't have the ability to plug all three bodies together because there's fragmentation in that emotional body.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the bridge between the two.
The longer that I do this work, and I started really looking at the emotional body several years ago, because the longer that I did the work, I was like, man, yes, as an Eastern medicine practitioner, it's a root and branch theory kind of methodological approach. And the bridge, like you said, is the emotional body and how you're processing your world, how you've internalized the processing of your world. What is it that you've carried that maybe you don't even know, like, oh, I don't have something I can point to in my past, but I carry this emotional thing. Like, that's intergenerational, right? And so I completely started shifting the questions I was asking. I need to get my paperwork on board to start reflecting some of this. But a lot of times when people come in the door, they're not ready for being able to answer those kinds of questions on paper.
Like, Adrienne and I are not the practitioner you come to unless you're ready to deconstruct your reality as you know it. And I've been so afraid to say that out loud, but I was the practitioner that helped you get, like, yes, go outside and get sunlight. I love you, but I don't want to sit on a call for an hour and have that be a half hour of our time together. There's like much richer context that we can dive into that's much more life-changing.
Yep.
And yes, is that a good habit to have? Absolutely. Do we need to take inventory of our relationships, especially the one with our internal ecosystem? Absolutely. But like, I did that for 7 years, and I still had women coming back to me a year and a half after we had done our work together, and they're like, my GI symptoms are back. Okay. Okay. It ain't this. And supplements are just like medication. I think we talked about this at the beginning. I took Motrin yesterday because my goosebumps hurt. I don't know how else to put it. I was so uncomfortable that I was like, I need to sleep. But to the point that Adrian made earlier, it didn't take the illness that I'm working through away. And guess what hurts again this morning?
The goosebumps.
I had temporary relief. Most of what you take exogenously, do that. Herbs in a different category. I will say that completely.
And that's the part that I have a hard time getting across to my clients is they'll be like, I have this symptom. What can I take for it?
No.
Okay. Like the only things I can think of that are like acute are things like ginger.
Yeah.
Your stomach is currently griping, meaning that it's contracting and it's creating this crampy sensation. And it's because it's cold and it's struggling to work through what you put into it. So ginger can help ease that. But it doesn't get to the root, which is that your stomach isn't functioning properly. Like there are a few herbs that you can take that way, but like that's not the relationship with them. And that's the part that I really struggle with. And I think this is also why I kept my paperwork the same and I haven't really like gone into the bigger picture, let's say, in the paperwork, because sometimes people just need to come through my door because they need enough of a relief from the current symptoms that then we can peel back that layer. And we can start talking about the bigger things and the deeper things and the familial things and all of that. But like Taylor took a small dose of ibuprofen to be comfortable temporarily, like I can start there. But where I want to go with the client is like, how did we get here? And this could be your lifetime. This could be a familial, intergenerational thing. Like, how did we get here? And what can we do about that? And it's one of the things that like I absolutely love when my clients want to pair acutonics with pelvic steaming and herbs. Herbs is always part of it because now I feel like you're dealing with all of the facets of how the journey happened and where you are now in that journey and what you're here to transmute in this lifetime. And the conversations get richer when we get to that stage because people who stay and do the work, as much as it always breaks my heart and makes me happy at the same time because I've developed a relationship with them. I've walked this journey through some of the toughest shit in their entire life with them. And they have come out on the other side and I don't see them anymore. Like, and I always wonder, like, how is your baby doing? Or sometimes it'll be a date and I'll be like, oh, happy birthday to so-and-so. And like, because I haven't seen them in 3 years, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to be sending that message. Right. But like, because to me, I've developed a relationship walking with them through some of the deepest transformational aspects of their life. And yet, you don't come back to see me generally when you've done the work because you're a completely new version of you.
That's the point, right? And I totally get that. It's almost like a polarity. It's a very weird place to sit because so many times I had mentors. I say that and I kind of like giggle at the whole mentor thing because admittedly, I wouldn't hire a single person I hired today. I wouldn't hire a single person I hired in the last 8 years ever again.
Yeah.
Because I look at them and I'm like, no, I thought I needed something and I thought I was going to find it in you. And I definitely didn't find it in you. I'm much more picky about who I choose to welcome into that inner circle. Right. But that's the whole point. Like I always had mentors say, don't get too attached to your clients. What do you mean? Like, and when somebody leaves, I'm like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. And like, oh, I don't want to see, like I get that. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. It's like, I'm so proud of you, right? Like that you went deep and you did the work. And at the same time, it's like held you in some of the most vulnerable griefs.
I do believe that they remember that. Like, I do believe that that is remembered. And I do believe that that is honored in their own way, even if we're not there to witness it.
I agree with you because I do hear things every so often. Like sometimes they'll reach back out to me or they'll send somebody to me.
Or it'll be a random DM on Instagram where it's like 2 years later, they're like, I think about you all the time. And like, I just had my second baby. And
yes,
I wouldn't have had my second baby if I hadn't had my first. And the work that we did together is what made that possible. Or like, I've had people say like, my daughter's middle name is Taylor because I wouldn't be here. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Those are the relationships that get me out of bed in the morning, because some of my clients have honestly seen me through some of my lowest and worst, because being able to support them on their journeys helped me heal too.
Yeah.
But at this point in my work, like, I can't not see how incredibly important the emotional body is in this whole picture.
And for most people, it collapses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was always my experience too. And you know this because you end up in like a depressed, withdrawal, isolated, dissociated state.
Yeah.
You know, there's a collapse of that emotional body, which means you overprocess in your mental body and it scatters, and then your physical body eventually shows the symptoms.
Yep.
And speaking of your emotional body, I do want to make mention of this because we talked about the Schumann resonance. Energy harvesting is a real thing. I don't think I'm going to spend too much time on this, but like, go back to the movie Monsters, Inc.
Mm-hmm.
What did they operate off of?
Fear. Screams. Yeah.
Right? Screams kept the city powered. So like the monsters went to work every night, hiding in little kids' closets and underneath their bed to generate the energy that they needed to keep their city running.
Mm-hmm. And they were experiencing shortages through scaring the shit out of people.
Yep.
And yet laughter.
I was going to say, but what did we learn? What did we learn at the end of the movie? So it's interesting how they implement. I think a lot of the times movies are intentionally put together. They tell us what they're doing right in front of our face, right? Monsters, Inc. is a beautiful example of how the system is operating right now. And it gives us the potential of how it could operate if we left the frequency of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened to the bigwig in Monsters, Inc.? What happened to the main honcho?
They were kicked out. And then it was all about joy and laughter and being silly and being authentically joyful. And that filled those tanks up so much faster.
And it lasted. It was sustainable energy.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Me too. Me too. I will still watch it to this day. But I think it's a really good example of life playing out in real time. Like, this is what we're dealing with, guys. So eyes wide open. You dysregulated and upset, and not to say that you can't have your feelings, but remember, feelings aren't facts. Honor your feelings, work through them, but don't have them, like, your feelings will have you do dumb shit if you let them.
Well, feelings are different than intuitive knowing. I want to put a pin in that because I hear people use that interchangeably.
No.
And they're very, very different. What your body knowing requires you to turn your brain off and to be quiet.
You have to be in your belly. You have to be able to tap into that. And most people override that again and again and again and again. Your feelings, give yourself 90 seconds in something. Like, I'm feeling angry. Okay, name it. 90 seconds later. Anything after 90 seconds is an applied story from the brain.
Yes. There's a concept in Japanese culture, if I mispronounce it, I apologize, but it's ma. And it's like when you're in conflict with someone, a partner, whatever, give yourself 90 seconds. Just sit with them. Coexist with them, and then start talking about it, and being able to have those conversations from a nervous system regulated state is completely different than when you're talking about it in a charged state. I try to talk to my kids about this all the time. I've got a couple that can take a breath and then regroup, and I've got one that just shoots from the hip every time. And I'm like, this is where you get yourself in trouble, my friend.
Yeah. So on that note, because Taylor's gas is running out of the tank, we made it an hour and I need to go blow my nose because it's not good to swallow, guys. As disgusting as that sounds, when you don't feel good, blow your nose or spit it out.
Yep.
What a way to end the podcast. Don't swallow, spit.
Welcome to the TNA podcast, everybody.
I genuinely mean it from the bottom of my heart. That was health advice. So maybe next time we can talk about functional medicine in depth. How about that?
I think that sounds great because I think we'll both have the brains for it.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Until next time, stay well. Go watch Monsters, Inc.